It was an ordinary day like any other. I woke up in the morning, prepared breakfast, and sat down to eat while reading the newspaper. After a while, the doorbell rang. I headed toward the door, saying, coming, just a minute." I opened the door but found no one there. I was about to turn and close the door again when I caught a glimpse of a small box on the doorstep. The box was medium-sized, brown, and had raised lines on it, but its shape was frightening because they resembled human veins. The box looked strange but distinctive. I picked it up and went inside, wondering who had sent me this strange box and what was inside it. I opened the box, curious to see what it contained, and found a pile of leather that resembled the leather used for winter coats. The leather was very soft and had a strange mix of white and red, and when I looked closer, my heart nearly stopped from fear because this leather was not synthetic. It was genuine human skin. Yes, human skin, as if it had been removed from a human body. I felt a wave of terror, but I noticed a folded letter underneath the leather along with an agenda. I set the leather aside and took the letter and the agenda. I quickly opened the agenda and found it contained names of people and dates next to each name, with several pages of text between each name. I thought to myself, I don't have time to read all of this. I'll open the first letter to find out who sent me this strange box, and then I'll read what's inside the agenda. I opened the letter and began to read. "Dear Mark, I'm sure you were terrified when you learned the truth about the skin in your hands. But believe me, when you know the truth behind its story, you will die of fear. Let me introduce myself. I am Kamal, the top of your class, and because you are the son of a doctor, I was rejected for a university position and you were hired instead. I want to say that you were one of the reasons for my misery in life. You and your father ruined my future and deprived me of the chance to teach at the university because of your father's influence. But there's no time to talk too much about the past, because this letter won't be enough for me to discuss that. I have something more important to tell you about this special gift. I will now tell you the truth about the strange skin in your hands. After I graduated, I tried to work with my degree, but all doors were closed in my face. In the end, I became a sales representative. It was a very exhausting job that required me to travel a lot all over Egypt. One day they asked me to travel to Alexandria to meet some clients, but I was delayed in that city, so I decided to stay the night. I went to the nearest hotel and thanked God that it looked old, which meant the fare would be low. The hotel had wooden floors throughout, and there was a foul smell wafting from every corner. At that moment, all I cared about was sleeping and not anything else. "Room 414, sir," said the receptionist while yawning and handing me the key. I went up to the room, and as soon as I saw the bed, I threw myself onto it and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up startled from sleep hearing that sound. The sound was coming from the room directly below mine. Maybe someone was sick and in pain. The sound was of someone in pain, crying at the same time, and it was clear they were trying to stifle their agony. I knocked on the floor of the room, and don't forget I told you it was made of wood, so the sound travels easily. I called out, "Hey sir, the one below, do you want me to call an ambulance? Are you okay?" No one responded. I repeated my call and knocked harder on the floor than before. "I'm fine, sir. Thanks. You can continue sleeping." That was the response I got from below, but the strange thing was that it was a girl's voice. Yes, a girl's voice, and very delicate too. I didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. Morning came, bringing with it my time to leave the hotel. I packed my bag and went downstairs. While I was leaving, I thought I would stop by the room where I heard the sound to check on her. Maybe she really needed help. I don't know why I did that. She wasn't my neighbor to check on her. She was just a guest at a hotel, but something was pulling me to go see her and make sure she was okay. When I reached in front of her room, I found her door old like all the other hotel doors, but strangely the door had some weird scratches on it. I asked myself in astonishment, what made those scratches? But I didn't waste time thinking and knocked on the door. "Miss, I'm the guest in the room above yours. Are you okay? I just wanted to check on you." Suddenly, the door swung open violently, and I found angry eyes staring at me. I controlled my nerves and tried to hide my fear while speaking to the one who opened the door. It was a middle-aged girl with somewhat delicate features, but her eyes were incredibly furious. Her red eyes looked as if she hadn't slept for a long time, and they were terrifying. "I'm Kamal, your neighbor from upstairs. Are you okay now?" she said in an annoyed tone. "I'm fine. Next time, mind your own business," she said, and then closed the door in my face. I thought to myself, what a strange and frightening person. I was wrong to come down and check on her. I continued down the stairs and handed in my room key. When I asked the receptionist about the name of this guest, he said, looking annoyed, "Her name is Sama, and it's better if you mind your own business. Since when do guests check on each other?" I gathered my things and left, thinking it was good that I finished my work and was heading back to Cairo. Then my phone rang. It was my boss, Mr. Ali, asking me to go to a client to finalize some procedures. I had no choice but to accept. There was no option for me to find another hotel to stay in that night, so I returned to the hotel again. I asked the receptionist to book me an extra night. I didn't know that this extra night would change my life completely, and that all the secrets were about to emerge. The day passed quickly. I finished my work and returned to the hotel to rest. Just like the night before, I threw myself on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up to the same sound, the sound of pain mixed with crying. It seemed this was going to continue every night. I won't lie, I was curious to know what was happening. So I put my ear to the floor and listened to the sound. The pain and crying were still ongoing. I called out to her, "Miss, would you like me to call an ambulance?" The moaning and crying continued. I thought I had to take action. Her voice reached me, angry, screaming, "I told you to mind your own business." Honestly, I should have listened to her. If I had heard her voice then, I would have been terrified and kept to myself, but unfortunately, I didn't do that. At first, I tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't because the sound of pain and crying persisted. In the midst of my confusion and curiosity about the girls suffering below, I noticed a small opening in the wooden floor. At that moment, I had an idea I would have never thought of if I were in another situation. I could look through it and see what was happening. I don't know how I did it, but curiosity was overwhelming. I placed my eye on the opening and looked. What I saw was terrifying. Something frightening, something you wouldn't wish to see your whole life. Sama was writhing on the floor in a strange way, crawling like a snake. Her body was completely tense, her limbs moving in all directions frighteningly. Despite all this, she continued to scream in pain. Her features were changing in a strange way. Her hair was turning white, while her face looked like that of an old woman full of wrinkles and cracks. This was not the girl I met today. Yes, it was Sama, but she was transforming before my eyes. Was she human, a ghost, or something else? I no longer understood what I was seeing. It was something I had never seen in my entire life. After a while of her strange behavior and the pain mixed with crying, I saw her stand up and walk normally toward the wardrobe. She opened the wardrobe and pulled out a box. A medium-sized brown box with ridges like human veins. Yes, what I thought about now was real. It was the box you have. But before you do anything you'll regret, let me finish the rest of the story so you know what this box is. At that moment, Sama opened the box and took out a pile of skin. The skin was a strange color, a mixture of white and red, and cautiously she spread the skin on the floor. My blood froze in my veins as the skin spread out. The skin stretched and took the shape of a human body. What is this? Human skin. Complete human skin. All the features were there, specifically the same features as Sama, the same face, the same hands, the same legs. It was like a skin version of her. Calmly, she lay down beside the skin and touched it with her hands. Sama's body seemed to be being pulled and entering into the empty skin. In a few minutes, her entire body was inside the empty skin, while her old body transformed into a pile of skin. The cursed skin. She stood up, and her beautiful features returned, a sense of relief spreading across her face. She placed the empty skin inside the box and closed the wardrobe. Suddenly, I found her looking up, looking at me as if she could see me. I quickly ran back to my bed, my heart racing. "You up there?" she called out to me. I pretended to be asleep and didn't respond. She called out once, twice, and 3 times, but each time I remained silent. Eventually she stopped, and only silence remained. The terrifying silence. The hours passed slowly as I kept thinking about what I had seen and what it meant. Could she be a demon, a practitioner of black magic, or even a creature from another world? I really had no idea what was beneath me. I stayed awake all night, waiting for her to pounce on me at any moment because I had seen something I shouldn't have seen. Surely she wouldn't leave me alone, she would attack me from anywhere. I sat in the room, my mind about to explode from overthinking, too afraid to open the door because I might find her right in front of me. Yes, that's what happens in every horror movie. The night dragged on, and finally morning came, bringing a sense of safety. I focused my hearing on the room below until I heard the door opening and closing. She must have gone out now. Curiosity was killing me, along with fear. I left my room and headed toward her room, standing in front of the door. You're probably wondering why I went back to her room. I don't know. I found myself heading to her room as if I were under a spell. All that occupied my mind was the need to look closely at that box. As I told you, the door was old, and a gentle push would surely open it. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually I pushed the door and entered. I hurried towards the wardrobe. When I opened it, I found the agenda and the box. The strange brown box was right in front of me now. I took it, opened it, and felt the skin. It really had a strange texture. I quickly closed the box and asked myself whether to take it or leave it. There was no time for hesitation. I had to make up my mind. She could return at any moment. Unfortunately, I took the box and went back to my room. I didn't know why I took it, but I knew that it contained a frightening secret. I decided to leave the hotel and take the box with me. I settled my bill and got into a taxi. But on the way, I kept thinking about what would happen to the girl when she returned and found the skin missing. Curiosity returned to me. I had to know. So I asked the taxi driver to take me back to the hotel. As soon as the receptionist saw me, he frowned and said, "Did you forget something?" I tried to smile and said, "I got a call from my boss. He wants me to finish some work too. Please book me another night, and I'd prefer the same room." I sat in the room by the opening in the floor, waiting for Summer's return. After a long wait, night came again, and I saw the door of the room below open. Finally, she was back, and exhaustion was clearly visible on her face. Minutes passed, and she began to writhe in pain. Her hair started to turn white, and her features changed rapidly. The same thing that happened the previous night happened again. When she went to the wardrobe and opened it, no, who took the box? She screamed loudly, breaking everything in the room as if she had turned into a raging beast. Fangs and claws began to appear, like the vampires we see in movies. Suddenly, she stopped, as if she remembered something. She looked up at me, blood dripping from her mouth. Her eyes met mine. This was definitely not a human, she was a demon. With a terrifying scream and all her strength, she jumped towards me. I threw myself backward, afraid she would break through the ground and come after me. I heard a loud thud, enough to loosen one of the floorboards. I ran and stood by the door to escape quickly if she broke through the room's floor. The screaming began to lessen one by one. Minutes passed, and all sounds disappeared. I cautiously approached the opening and looked. Summer was lying on the ground, smoke billowing from every part of her body, as if she were burning and turning to ash. In pain, she raised her hand towards me, as if she were begging me. "The skin! The skin!" I quickly ran from my place, took the skin, and went down to her. I had to save her with all my strength. I broke the door and entered. Her body was fading away. I spread the skin beside her quickly, but strangely, her body continued to burn. What was the reason? I did exactly what I had done before. Minutes later, she turned into a pile of ash. I was confused about what had happened and found no explanation for anything. But I remembered that I saw an agenda in her wardrobe. I quickly opened the wardrobe and took the agenda. I flipped through its pages rapidly, finding names, dates, and stories. I told myself I would read it leisurely at home to understand what I had seen. And that was the last night I would spend in the hotel. I returned home feeling tired and exhausted. I thought the matter was over like that. But I was wrong, because the next day I woke up in the middle of the night. and I feel like my whole body is burning. My hair has started to fall out and turn white. My skin started to wrinkle. My teeth have started to grow. I am experiencing the same thing that was happening to Sama. It seems that whoever holds this cursed skin gets the curse transferred to them. So the curse left Sama and hit me. That's the reason I couldn't save her. I had already touched the skin. I stretched the skin beside me, and within minutes, my body transferred to the empty skin. And I put my old leather jacket inside the box. The curse struck me, and that's it. I had to listen to Sama and leave me alone. But it's done. What's done is done, and now I have to live with this curse. I just said fine, as long as I'm going to live like this. So I have to read about the people mentioned in the agenda, so I can understand the story behind this curse. And the beginning was in 1935 with a famous Egyptian scientist and his team. The topic began with the discovery of an ancient tomb of one of the ancient Egyptian princesses. It is said that she was very disliked by the entire royal court, to the extent that the priests cursed it with the cursed whip's curse, and let her live with this curse for a while, and then we will embalm her while she is still alive. And they placed this box with her in her tomb, believing that the curse would remain with her even in the afterlife. And they don't know that the tomb will be opened and the curse will be transferred to other people. Unfortunately, after opening the tomb, the scientist did not know its name because the ancient Egyptians did not write the names of disliked or cursed figures. But what was special about the princess's mummy was that it was embalmed while she was screaming, and her features were all horror. They called it the Screaming Mummy. The tomb only had the coffin and this box. So the Egyptian scientist took it and became the first cursed person in modern history. And he was the first one to write his story in this agenda. If you read the agenda in the box, you'll find his story and the story of everyone the curse was passed on to. Until my story ends, and don't worry, there are still a few pages left for you to write your story too. After I took the box, the curse was passed on to me. I decided that I won't live like this for long. I was very upset with myself because of my curiosity, and I kept blaming myself a lot for staying in this hotel and taking the box after I saw what was happening to Sama. I just sat and thought a bit about the reason for my presence in Alexandria, and the reason I work as a sales representative. And I realized that all of this happened because of you and your father. You are the main reason for my curse. You are the reason I was deprived of my job at the university. So you are the one who deserves this valuable gift the most. Dear Mark, by the time you read this letter, I will have turned to ashes because, in short, I cannot live with this curse. I promised you that when you read the answer, you would die of fear. I wasn't lying to you. Surely you touched the skin, and surely the curse has struck you even more.